Hey, this is Malika of Evanston Live TV, and I want to welcome everyone to the Fifth Ward Candidate Forum. Yes, we have three candidates. Many of you know them already. You've seen them out and about in the community doing work. We have candidate Bobby Burns, we have candidate Carolyn Murray, and we have write-in candidate Rebecca Mendoza. So welcome candidates, welcome to Evanston Live TV. Actually, you're all returning. You've all been guests on the show before in the past. So welcome. And I want to send a big thank you to our sponsors of this forum, the STEM School of Evanston, Henry Wilkins. Thank you so much. And the Walker Thomas Group, Erica Walker. Thank you for sponsoring this event. Yes. So we're going to jump right into it. I want to make sure we have time for our residents to get their questions. First, we're going to start with 60-second introductions. So we're going to start actually with our sponsors. We only have our one sponsor here today, and that's STEM School Evanston. So Henry Wilkins, if you want to let the public know what STEM is about.
Sure. Yes. So my name is Henry Wilkins. I'll tell you a little bit about myself and then talk about STEM School Evanston. So I'm a resident of, been a resident of Evanston Skokie now for about 16 years. I have two kids in District 65. Both kids are at Walker, one in the 5th grade and one in the 1st grade. About 3 years ago, I learned about an area of Evanston that used to have a school, and due to desegregation, they shut down the school. The school was predominantly Black at the time, and they decided to bus all the kids outside of the area. Most people know it as a 5th Ward, or Central Core is what we refer it to. We knew that this disproportionately impacted the educational experiences of the kids, and my heart broke, quite essentially. And we bonded together with some folks that have been, pursuing this for decades, and felt like we would give it another run this time. The thinking is that it would be a STEM-focused community school, STEM standing for science, technology, engineering, and math. Right now we're a 501c3, so if anyone is inclined or interested in donating, please do. We have a website. The website address is www.stemschoolevanston.net. Feel free to email us as well. There's some other parents that are part of STEM School Evanston, so hopefully we get to those folks and introduce those folks as well. I see Renee here, Katya, and Vanessa, and I know I'm missing some other folks.
Okay, Vanessa, you want to take 60 seconds to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. So my name is Vanessa Alvarado, and I live in the 5th Ward. I've lived here for almost 7 years now, and I really enjoy living in the 5th Ward. I've been working on and off with Henry to push the STEM school initiative, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm glad to see that that the STEM school initiative is alive and kicking, and it's gaining momentum.
Okay, awesome. And Henry, is Mark joining us this evening?
Mark's my husband.
Okay.
You're talking about Mark Roshan?
Yes.
He's watching the kids right now.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So thank you so much to STEM again for sponsoring tonight's event. Now we're gonna move on to the introduction of our candidates. Bobby Burns, you're first up. You have 60 seconds to let the people know who you are.
60 seconds. My name is Bobby Burns. Thanks, Malika, for doing this. Congratulations on your Community Leadership Award, too. I wanted to say that before I get into it. Congratulations, well deserved.
Thank you.
My name is Bobby Burns. I am a candidate for 5th Ward Alderman. I grew up in Evanston with my sister, older sister Tamara, and my mother, who worked at CETA, which is a social service agency in the ward, and was a school board member at 202. So at a very early age, I understood the systems change work that was happening at the district level, but also the everyday fundamental day-to-day needs of the ward through our work at CETA. I met a lot of my, lifelong friends and mentors in the Fifth Ward. The Fifth Ward friends I met through our inequitable busing system. We met in the hallways and the soccer fields at Orange Elementary. And they kind of welcomed me into this community. It's where I affirmed my racial identity, not just as a Black man, but as a Black Evanstonian, which really connected me with a really rich and important history, African-American history here in the ward, and people
Time,
that have
Mr. Burns.
to making Evanston what it is today. So looking forward to more time to talk.
Okay, thank you so much, Bobby. Again, you guys got 60 seconds, and when Vanessa says time, you got 15 seconds to wrap it up. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you. Okay, and next we have Carolyn Dykes Murray.
Thank you, Malika. Thank you for having this forum, STEM School. I thank you for the invitation. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Carolyn Murray. I am a community activist and a Navy veteran. I'm born and raised, and I'm a lifelong resident of the Fifth Ward in Evanston. I have deep roots here. My family's from here. I've been active in the community for well over 20 years. I moved back here with my family and purchased my home, and I've been involved in city council ever since. I hosted and moderated the Fifth Ward meetings for over 10 years. I've planned numerous amount of events and activities throughout the ward for my tenure over being here. I've also collected over 300 guns in the successful gun buyback programs that I've had since 2012.
Time, Ms. Murray.
Okay, thank you.
You have 15 seconds.
Oh, I have 15 seconds. I can't see your little thing. Okay. So I will say that I have advocated for community issues. I've worked on several initiatives throughout Evanston through my years. Harley Clark, Evanston Voter Initiative. I've worked with the youth. I've worked as one of the members of the Evanston Youth Initiative that led to the Youth and Young Adult Division as we know it today. I've been very active and as a go-to person in the Fifth Ward for over 20 years. Thank you.
Time.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Carolyn. And
All right.
we have our write-in candidate, Rebecca Mendoza. Rebecca?
Good, yes,
Okay.
I'm unmuted now. Good evening. My name is Rebecca Mendoza. That's spelled R-E-B-E-C-A, 1C, Mendoza, M-E-N-D-O-Z-A. I was born in La Ciudad de Mexico, Mexico, and I was raised in Evanston. I attended Washington Elementary School, Nichols Middle School, and graduated from ETHS in 1998. My family and I have lived all over Evanston. However, I chose to raise my daughter in the Fifth Ward, where I currently reside. For 15 of those years, I've worked with nonprofit organizations in Evanston and partnered and collaborated with organizations across the Chicagoland area and abroad. In my current employment, I work with humanitarian projects in diverse communities abroad in 6 areas of focus. The road to be here with you this evening has not been easy, but I am relentless in this effort because I believe that the next City Council will be charged with the very important work of recovering from a once in a 100-year disaster. For the last 10 months, I have been immersed in that work. Our next alderman will need to ensure that our ward gets the needed COVID-19 response and recovery, as well as work towards racial equity, healing, issues of health disparities, economic development, and affordable housing. I'm energetic, I'm humble, authentic, and a remarkable servant leader. Success is my priority, and it would be my pleasure to serve as your Fifth Ward alderman.
Time.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. And to our viewers, I know you all are wondering, who's the lady saying time? This is Vanessa Mayo Burton. She is our timekeeper today to make sure we stay on schedule so we can get as many questions in for the candidates as we possibly can. Okay. And then we also have Janone. He is monitoring the event today to make sure there's no distractions. Okay, so everyone is ready here. Start the first question. Okay, so Evanston Live TV is going to throw out the first question, and then I'm going to turn it over to STEM and then on to the residents. So residents, get your questions ready. You can type them in the chat, we'll call on you, or you can use the raise your hand signal. If you can't find it, just write it in the chat and we'll call on you, and then you'll unmute and ask your question. Okay, so the first question, I know many are familiar now with me doing this with the other forums, but I find that we learn a lot about the candidates when they ask each other a question. So we're going to do that for the 5th Ward. The 5th Ward is a very special ward, a very important ward to Evanston. And so, yeah, we need leaders in the 5th Ward who are about it and going to be about it and do it. Okay, so here we are. The first candidate to ask a question, actually, I'm going to have you ask a question. You're going to pick one opponent to ask the question, okay, to answer the question. So first we'll start with Carolyn Murray. Pick an opponent and ask them a question.
Sure. Thank you. I would like to ask my opponent, Bobby Burns, a question. And that question would be, what do you think about the proposed housing unit for the Emerson block?
For the proposed Emerson block, what address are we talking about?
We're talking about the proposed multiple unit, that the rental unit that is proposed for Emerson and Jackson.
Emerson and Jackson. I thought that proposal was already discussed and handled. We're not talking about Church Street, 1805 Church Street. We're talking about where
Actually, it was tabled and they're trying to repropose it, and the residents have concerns about the multiple unit being built there.
Right. Yeah, I know there's some talk in the area about one in that area downzoned and not wanting, multi-use development there, having some concerns that it's not in line with it was never adopted, but the West Side plan that was worked on back in 2005. So I know there's some conversations about it not being aligned with some of the changes that were proposed in that plan, and that I thought, like I said, I didn't even think that was on its way back up. I thought that was already handled. So.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn. The next candidate to ask a question will be Rebecca Mendoza. Pick an opponent and ask them a question. And you have 2 minutes to respond.
Okay, thank you. This question is for Carolyn. Good evening, Carolyn. One of the most present and detrimental issues facing our community is COVID-19. We all know that. How do you plan to move our community to the next phase in this pandemic to ensure that families in our community, as well as underserved communities within Evanston, are prepared to return to an in-person society?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I didn't hear you in the beginning.
Okay, certainly. One of the most detrimental issues facing community right now is COVID-19. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. How do you plan to move our community into the next phase in this pandemic to ensure families in our community, as well as the underserved community specifically within Evanston, are prepared to return to an in-person society?
One of the proposals that I think that we need to look at overall is our COVID response. Obviously, our small businesses have been affected. The residents who have lost their income, if not have lowered their income, they are detriment to the Evanston community. If we don't have the proper necessities to give them resources, i.e. food, i.e. subsequent to the loss that they had with the effects of COVID, we're going to lose them. So it's very imperative that we come up with initiatives that will provide resources for them. I think that Evanston hasn't done quite enough to match that. I think that we also have city staff that can look into additional funds for the state level as well as federal level. And then when I have been out in the community speaking with the business owners, some of the communication that was given out as it pertains to how they communicate with the business owners in the Central Street District and the downtown area, that information wasn't passed on to the small businesses. So we definitely in the 5th Ward. So I definitely want to look at the bridge of the communication, and are we really looking at adequately communicating all of the food pantries that we have within city limits, all of the financial resources and grant money and federal assistance? Are we passing that on to our regular citizens that might need it and our small business owners? So I think that it's imperative that we are actively communicating with all of the residents and all of the applicable businesses that would benefit from that as well. Okay, is the flag that means that I got more time, or does that mean it's over? It's over? Okay.
You're fine.
All right. Oh, I'm
You have
fine.
about 4
Okay.
seconds.
I have 4 seconds. Okay. Okay. So I really want the city to take this on as an initiative. Obviously, it's going to affect our budget overall and any proposed budgets that we have.
And there's
Okay.
your time.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for the question, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ladies. Okay, and Bobby Burns, please pick an opponent and ask them a question.
Yeah, I'll ask Rebecca a question. I don't know if I have good information, but Piloto, who's a mutual acquaintance, said that you were an artist. And if that's true, I wanted to know what you thought about just art in general, and how we can, the way we fund art installation as art projects, our council, just ways we can generally improve kind of art in the community and access to it.
Okay, yes, thank you for the question. Piloto is a good friend of mine, and I'm excited for the work that he's doing in the community. I served on the Evanston Arts Council. Several years back, I was appointed, and one of the things that I worked really hard during that time is to ensure that artists of color were recognized. During that time, I was pretty frustrated at the work that the city was doing in just devaluing the work of Black and Brown artists. We have the blessing of having a wonderful lady by the name of Lisa D, who's done incredible work around Evanston Made, of which I'm a member. So yes, I am an artist. I think everyone is an artist unless they're told that they're not. So I did a lot of work, different mediums throughout high school, and I still, whenever I can, try to do some art on my own. I am trying to actually work with Evanston Made to highlight the incredible artists that exist here in the 5th Ward that are underlooked. There's several different murals that are here that people in our city don't know that are here. As well as I currently live in the Arts District, which has been a historical art district, and not a lot of people really know that we once were a thriving art district here in the 5th Ward. One of the artists that I recently made was Alpha Chimp, who lives right down the street from me and does incredible work. Those artists, including the Guild, have been some of the hardest hit businesses right now during the pandemic. And so how can we as a community lift them up and do more to promote and keep Evanston the thriving arts city that it is? I think a lot of people move here because of the incredible artistry that we have. And there's a lot more that we can do specifically around supporting our Black and Brown artists and finding spaces for them, supporting and valuing their work the same way that our other artists are valued. So yes, that's a community that I am interested in supporting.
Okay,
Time, right?
Time.
thank you, thank you. Okay, so Henry Wilkins of STEM, you have the floor to ask the next question. Henry?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So good evening, everyone. So one of the things, or one of the groups that I'm affiliated with, I'm a member of the Education Subcommittee for Reparations. And last summer, during the reparations feedback sessions, it was identified that returning a school to the 5th Ward was a form of reparations. My question is, how do you see your support being with helping to deliver something that the community has identified as a form of reparations?
Henry, you froze.
As a city council member, close this.
Repeat the question one more time.
Yes, so, it's often been said, Doris Holmes has said, the school board is the one that closed Foster School. The school board is the one that could return a school. So what do you see your role is on city council with helping to deliver and return a school to the 5th Ward for the residents of Evanston? And, just thinking about your role in city council versus your role, on the school board. So this question is for both Rebecca, everyone, all three of you guys.
Do you want me to go first, or do you want to decide?
Rebecca, you take it.
Sure. Thank you for that question, Henry, and thank you for the insight from the other day and speaking to you about your efforts. You too are relentless, and I really appreciate that. Within the next 4 years, it's very unlikely that we will get a school in the 5th Ward. So the work of the city council is going to be in bringing resources, as I mentioned to you, but to support our youth in our ward. So we do have several different organizations that are supported through the Health and Human Service Committee at City Council, as well as we do have a school currently in the 5th Ward, and I'm a big supporter of Kingsway Preparatory. So I think a lot of the work that I'm interested in doing is around adverse child experiences, and that starts from our partners at the Infant Welfare Society, of which many of our residents attend. So I think through our Parks and Rec Department, through our Health and Human Services Committee, and the work that they do, I think that we need to really lift up the experiences that our children are having in this ward. Meanwhile, you achieve that goal of bringing a STEM school to Evanston that will hopefully benefit all of our students. So I think that's going to be the work of City Council, and finding new creative ways to use the limited funds that we do have. I think that the different commissions are really going to be charged with, again, COVID recovery, specific to bringing our kids back to school and dealing with the collective trauma that we've all experienced. So for the next 4 years, I think that that's the really important work that we have to do around education, around early childhood, and around the services that the city renders to this community, specifically the 5th Ward.
Okay. Bobby Burns.
Yeah, so this is, obviously realizing, that we have to play more of a supporting role in returning a school to the Central Core, to the 5th Ward. That being said, I'm proud to have been the 5th Ward field manager back in 2012 for a group called Citizens for a Better Evanston that was working towards getting a referendum passed to get a school back in the 5th Ward. I served with people like G. Logan and 5th Ward residents like Tolly Walker and Peter Gibbs and others. And for months, we really campaigned around returning a school and tried to educate as many people as we could about the importance of it. And, at core, what it's about is, there are so many benefits to making sure that everybody in the city of Evanston has access to a really rich education. And having a neighborhood school, which is something that District 65 really, says that that's an important value of theirs, is important. People being able to walk to school with their friends, parents being able to meet each other, on the school playground to get to know one another, people having easier access to parent-teacher conferences and having easier access to their teachers and principals and other school leaders is really important. But we have to make sure whatever happens that is child-centered and that it's really based on, academic outcomes, that this is going to be a really thriving and strong and rich education for the students. The last point I want to say is that this is a concept that has a lot of support. It has support on the board. It has support from our superintendent. It also has support from the Fifth Ward. I want to call our attention to, the referendum results from 2012 said that 63.7% of Fifth Warders said yes. And if you remove the east side of the ward that is predominantly white, and I'm only doing this for this exercise, 70.9% of the ward said that they wanted a school in the Fifth Ward. So essentially, 8% of people said in the part of the ward closest to Fleetwood and Founding Focus that they want a school. So this is important thing we need to do, and we'll find ways, hopefully, to support this effort. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Carolyn?
Thank you. So I will say that I definitely support a Fifth Ward school. I remember hearing stories from people in the neighborhood about Foster and how sitting with Mom Morton and how she would talk about how the school was thriving for the African American kids during that time, being so close and being within the neighborhood. So I unfortunately never had that opportunity to be able to walk to a school growing up here in the Fifth Ward. I was bused to Willard, and my kids went to other schools where they had to be bused as well. So not only do I think that it is a very innovative and very, very obtainable school that can be displayed in Evanston, I recommend that the school be introduced as a school with a cutting edge in technology and mathematics, so it would gain a larger support within the community. I would look for the school also to partner with Northwestern and some of the other hospitals within Evanston community to gain that additional funding to secure the building of a new school. I think that you can go to visit other college towns and you'll see more of an involvement with the university within the schools in that city. And I think that that would be very, very helpful in producing the capital in order to get that school. It's unfortunate that District 65 is now operating in a deficit, because I remember just a few years ago, the referendum was passed and we were so excited about seeing the money going back into District 65. So what happened, I just don't understand how we're not getting the results as the Fifth Ward residents into the taxes that we're putting into the school. Is my time almost up?
Time.
Okay. So I just want to say that, yes, I fully support it. It's unfortunate that school board meetings are on the same night as the city council meeting. But as a city council person to be elected, I would definitely put all of my backing into securing that school. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was a great question. Great question. Vanessa from STEM.
Hi, good evening. Let's see. So Henry stole my question, but I'll go ahead and ask another one. So I think I heard it said that the new alderperson would serve on the city council as more like a supporting role for a Fifth Ward school. Is that correct? Did I hear that correctly? Was that you, Bobby?
As a supporting role.
Could you explain that more for me, please?
Our role as the District 65's role is to really work within its budget to try to bring a school to the Central Core, to the Fifth Ward. And I think what we can do is, there is a kind of a liaison or a joint committee, I should say, between, District 202, 65 and the school district and city council. Typically 2 members, volunteer to sit on that committee from council. And we can use that as a space to talk about how we can collaborate in funding the school. Carolyn offered a suggestion to partner with Northwestern and other members. I have some creative ways, I think, around TIF. And there's a conversation about bringing a new TIF to the Fifth Ward, but I think through TIF, there's also some opportunity there. We've seen other communities, similar communities, come together, and their city has helped with capital improvement projects to build a school in their community. So I think we can use that space as a ground to try to figure out how we can collaborate towards this goal, which ultimately benefits everybody living in Evanston. And so it should be a priority of each of our respective bodies.
Okay, great, thank you. Just like a quick follow-up question. So, and anyone could answer this. So what could we as Fifth Ward community members, or just community members of Evanston in general, do to kind of shorten that time, you know, from now until when we will see a Fifth Ward school? You know, this Henry, you know, started this 3 years back, and then I heard someone say, you know, the next 4 years we won't see a school in the Fifth Ward. So then, you know, we're looking at another 7 years. So we're just worried that, you know, this is kind of the message that we're always hearing, like, well, it's going to be another 3 years, it's going to be another 4 years, you know, and I'm sure community members that have been in this community well longer than me, you know, have heard this for, you know, 40 plus years. So what could I do, or community members do, to maybe, you know, hurry this process along?
I would just like to say that I think that you already created the foundation. You're rallying the support, you're bringing it to the attention of the district, and they will work with you, or should work with you, to build that partnership, to allocate those funds and set aside, even if it is a building in a process of setting those funds aside. As I stated before, I'm not really sure how the referendum X amount of years ago now has turned into a deficit for the district. That concerns me. That, you know, is there something that is disconnected when it comes to budgeting? But I think if the district is seriously about backing the parents who are interested in getting the school, and the residents are interested in seeing that school, we should try to allocate other fundings, additional fundings that could be out there, even if we're looking on a national level for funding for the school. As I stated before, if you're looking at a school with the state-of-the-art cutting edge in technology and science and mathematics, I believe we should even broaden our horizons with Microsoft, with Tesla, to try to get a partnership to see if we can get the additional funding.
I'll just quickly add that, you know, if we're there's two costs. There's the kind of the capital cost to build the building, and then there's the how do you work in the operating costs, which is, you know, at present I think they're going to be putting together a reassignment committee, which is going to talk about potentially redrawing maps. There's been some conversations that if a school was possible, it would require the closing of schools, or at least the shifting around of students to different schools, which would be handled through a reassignment and remapping process. So there's that part of it, that you can reach out to the district and really see where they're at on that. There's I believe her name is Sarita Smith at the district is supposed to be handling that. And then you have the how do we fund it, which again, we've provided some ideas here. But if the community is going to try to fund it again through a referendum, I mean, the data is out. 80% of the Fifth Ward that lives in the park closest to Family Focus in Fleetwood voted for a school, right? And it was Northeast Evanston and Northwest Evanston, First Ward, you know, 6th, 7th, and 1st wards that could not get to the point where they understood the value of it, right? And so if it's about a referendum, we have to figure out how to reach out to that community and, you know, educate them about the importance of this and make sure that they know it's families with school-age children, both Black, white, and Latinx in the Fifth Ward that want this. And so it just depends on, you know, how we fund it.
Thank you for that question. One thing that I would like to add is we have a really great opportunity with the Evanston Public Library. Some of you might have followed the conversation that was recently had around the closings of the library. However, they are looking to eventually have a school here, a library here in the Fifth Ward. So I think as I mentioned to Henry, I think it's going to be a matter of collaboration. There's an opportunity with the work that's being done with the library and deciding where their next branch will go, as well as partnering, like it's been said, with Northwestern. Many schools have demonstration schools, and any big 10 city that you go into, there's no doubt that it's a Big Ten school. That's lacking here in Evanston. So I think the opportunity that exists with the Evanston Public Library, as well as the building of the community centers that we do have, and building a model around the model that's considered community schools. So where you have everything for families, a clinic, a library, a school, a place to be physically active, like some other neighborhoods have across the city of Chicago. So I think that while it might take some time, I think that there is a huge opportunity that is available with the conversation of the Evanston Public Library.
So I just have a follow-up. So you think the Evanston Public Library will collaborate with us on a school?
I think they should. I think it would behoove them to partner. I mean, they provide great resources to the community, and that was a big topic during the closing of the library branches. So that I know that the steering committee is currently working on those discussions. So I think that that would definitely be a good partner, and also finding ways to support existing organizations. We have our beloved Family Focus that needs support. I've already mentioned Infant Welfare Society of Evanston. So I think that the bringing all of that together, what I would love to see as part of the structure of STEM school is the actual philosophy behind a community school, which is what I think would best be suited for this area.
And I just want to quickly add, I absolutely agree with Rebecca, and it's why even the attempt in 2012, we focused on the community school, saying, hey, look, the conventional 9 to 3 school day isn't it's not sufficient to meet the needs of the community, but also it underutilizes a pretty large space in the community. So why not extend those hours so that and in the evenings or in the afternoon or in the weekends, it can transform into a different space that serves different needs. So 100%, that was the model that we really centered in our attempt to get a school the last time. So 100% agree with that.
Well,
And I'll just add, and generate income, right? Generate income. So how do we, as part of that, allow income to be generated through the use of space, maybe even storefronts, allowing small businesses to share spaces. We're lacking an incubator space here in the Fifth Ward. We have a lot of business people, and so I think collaboration and partnership, Henry, as I mentioned to you during our time together, is where it's at, and the direction that we should be moving towards. And I would be fully in support of it as a council member.
Well, I disagree. I just want to add that the city has systematically overlooked the Fifth Ward. And as we are talking about getting a school, we have also talked about getting a library. And I've seen no funding going back into getting those facilities in the Fifth Ward. However, I've seen a lot of funding allocated to Robert Crown. So with that in mind, I think that we have to seriously look at what we're willing to do and what we're willing to commit as a council person.
All right, thank you, Carolyn. Carlos, he's also part of STEM, and then we're going to turn it over to the residents. Carlos Sutton, you have a question? Carlos, we can't hear you. Can you turn your volume up?
Yeah, is that better now?
That's better.
Okay,
Thank you.
it was me.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're having this discussion about a school. I think the more appropriate place would be with school board candidates. but as long as we have these on the air, it should be known that our community has not had an opportunity to grow since the school was removed from our community. And just in the last 4 censuses, it is imperative that we see that Blacks are the only group in Evanston that are losing not only home ownership, but occupancy in the 5th Ward. Now, my whole thing is, when this ward becomes more than 50% white and Hispanic, you're gonna get a school, okay? Now, what kind of school will that be? It seems like the powers that be have already decided that they're not gonna give a school in my lifetime to people in the 5th Ward. So it should be a STEM school. And it should have a curriculum that's based upon all the technology that could give us jobs without worrying about having to go to college and prepare us for a living wage here in this city. It also gives us a community group that we should go around to give us camaraderie and to set the standards for the whole Evanston community about equity. So I'm glad to see that all the candidates are interested, but I also know that the input is very limited about their influence since they're not school board members, but running for 5th Ward. But a school in the 5th Ward will be here. And the way that I'm looking at the Census Bureau from 1990 until 2020, the only group that has lost ground have been Black people. And we also have fewer homeowners, and the majority now are renters. That's not a good sign. We need to have more family-friendly things. A school would help that. But more important, what we need to do is address both the city council and the school boards about the needs of people in this community to have their concerns not only listened to, but implemented. The only thing we've received over the last 40 years is marginalization and gentrification. And it's time that we put a stop to this and start addressing the needs and the concerns versus
Time, Mr. Sutton.
and the homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. Thank you very much. Okay, we're opening up to the residents. Okay, our first resident is Aaron Foster. Aaron Foster, please ask your question.
Excellent. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. All right. Evanston is known for its businesses throughout the North Shore. And as a council member, your business-based awareness is very important. So my question is, name 3 of the 5th Ward businesses, not Hecky's, and name the owners. And please try not to repeat what your previous candidate has mentioned. And please answer alphabetically by last name. End of question.
Okay, so that would be Bobby Burns. Had to go through the alphabet myself. Bobby Burns?
Yeah, so not Hecky. So of course, Jennifer Easton, we got to go with Jennifer Easton. We got to go with Bridget Gigi Giles. We got to go with Donna Walker. We got to go with Pablo at the Giro Planet. What's the second part of the question?
Oh shit. That was it. Basically, name the owner and the business.
Okay.
And try not to repeat each other.
Okay. Yeah, so that's Euro Planet, that's Ebony Barbershop, that's Cutting Edge, that's Jennifer Edibles.
Next person.
Before we, because we don't have that many, I would say Sam from the Sam's Barbershop. I would also say Claire from Claire Corner.
We got one more.
Oh, we got several more, but the shops or grocery stores.
Just okay.
I think he said all businesses.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you can name them, this is pretty much a test on your awareness of the 5th Ward. That's it. It's not malicious in any way.
Oh no, Paula from Paula's Beauty Shop as well.
Okay. Then that would be 3, and please go to the next person. And actually, y'all were out of order, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's all right. So yes, there's Calvin's Company, owned by Paul Boynton, the wonderful SLK Salon, owned by Sandy Kadiri, and the incomparable Chef Q Ibrahim. All have businesses here in the 5th Ward.
Thank you for your answer.
Okay. All right. And our next, thank you so much, Aaron, for the question. Okay, next up we have Jeff Masters. Jeff, please ask your question.
Hi, I'm a 5th Ward resident. I've been here not as long as a lot of you. I joined in 2006, so I'm going on 15 years, but I have been active in the 5th Ward or tried to participate. One of the biggest concerns for me and looking at the 5th Ward, it revolves around part of what Carlos was talking about in terms of home equity, affordable housing, how do we keep people in Evanston? While we have people like me, because I'm one that maybe is gentrifying, that come in. It's an interesting question, but what really bothers me is where are you on what Evanston has proposed when I first got here? Dolores might have the right name, but I think it was the West End plan. That plan said this was a community-wide effort where people in the community were surveyed. They were brought in what they wanted. They were told this is what we're going to have. I came in after the main plan was written, I think, because it was 2006, but there was a community meeting in Fleetwood Jourdain where we all were together talking about how would we model this. Well, nothing's happened with that plan. Part of what Carolyn referred to was the overlay district on Everson and Jackson and Wesley of what we want to do. There's reasons for why nothing's happened. So I'm interested to know, what do you as candidates know about this? And if you know anything about the West End plan, to how do we move forward with thinking about housing and development in the 5th Ward if we're not going to use that plan?
Well, Jeff, I will take a stab at your question. It's a good question. The mythical 5th Ward, the Evanston West plan, I've heard so much about it, and I agree with you. We've been talking about it for several years, and taking the initiatives to actually see it come to light have been in discussion for a lot of the ward meetings. However, I haven't seen it really pick up too much in council. We've seen a lot of introductions to developmental housing, the multiple units, which were really shot down by most of the residents because we don't want to live downtown. We want to keep our residential area the way that it was zoned for its natural state. I think that some of the housing issues that we've seen as far as affordable housing kind of took a dive when you saw the less amounts of the general assistance going away for housing that would be assistance for people right now who are in need because of the COVID responses and the low or lack of employment. So when you have that and you don't have any resources set up, you're going to see a deficiency in the type of representation that we see in the diversity. They're going to move away if they can't afford to live here. So with that said, how are we going to help them and assist them? Right now, we have over 50% of the people that are getting assistance from St. Vincent de Paul just to maintain housing and maintain food in the 5th Ward. So,
15 seconds, Ms. Murray.
Okay, so we have to look at how we are making Evanston more affordable. We have to look at ways that we are innovating with the landlords, working with the landlords and the tenants to secure their rent will be paid in crisis within the COVID-19 situation right now.
Time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to hop in next. The 5th Ward plan West Side plan is an important plan, and I think we need to revisit it and certainly talk to everybody that was a participant back then to see how we can improve the process. You know, the 5th Ward plan really called for 3 things. It called for revitalizing underutilized spaces, which I think about, what can we do to permanently relocate Shorefront to Gibbs Morrison, for example, and really, turn the Church and Dodge like to the Bronzeville, right, of our area, make it a place that's energized by, culture and art. I also think when I think about revitalizing underutilized spaces, Fleetwood at present is just kind of a gym, and then has some mixed use in some of the open areas, and it has a theater there. But I think there's some opportunity to create a larger space there, and maybe add a level so that we have a space where people can bump into each other and get to know each other. I also think about family focus. There was a plan to move Oakton into family focus, and there's some other things that have been discussed, but what can we do to make sure we're fully utilizing the space that we have in family focus? It also called for better ingress and egress, better flow through traffic. And the Mayfair line is an important part of that. There's a train line that's no longer in operation that cuts through 5, 2nd Ward and the 9th Ward. And I think we can make it more walkable and bikeable. Right now it's underdeveloped and there's transmission lines going through it. So I've been tuning in to some utilities commission meetings because we're negotiating currently our franchise agreement with ComEd. And so there's an opportunity to have them underground those wires so that we can develop affordable housing, make it more walkable and bikeable in the neighborhood. And
15 seconds.
It also called for coordinated redevelopment. So us moving away from these kind of piecemeal projects and trying to see what we can do to bring more businesses back, furniture shops, coffee shops, and just make the ward alive and more energetic. And also we need to look at finding
Mr. Burns.
that are gonna attract people in. We have a lot of design companies that use the space to design and build and create, but we need more businesses that invite people to come in and spend money in the ward.
Thank you, Bobby. Rebecca?
Yes, thank you for that question. So as I mentioned before, we're in unprecedented times. And so the plans that were developed before need to be revisited to address the specific time that we're in. One of the things that I think needs to be addressed immediately as we talk about affordable housing is supporting the landlords that currently provide the most affordable housing. Mr. Sutton, you brought this up last night at our ward meeting. Just the need to support it, it's a chain reaction, right? So if individuals are unable to pay their rent, the landlords are unable to pay their mortgage, and then those individuals look to move out of our town. Those landlords that have been longstanding here is specifically in our ward. And so if we're making it harder for them to stay, to provide that affordable housing, I think that a lot of the affordable housing is currently provided by those type of landlords. So I think the immediate response that needs to be taken by the next council is to support current owners who are providing affordable housing. And I think that needs to be done in a creative way because housing is going to be a huge crisis within the next this coming year and then the coming 2021 through 2022. So I think that the plan needs to be developed, right? So how do we keep our homeowners here who have been providing affordable housing for a long time? I think that needs to be a top priority, and it's something that's going to have to require creativity by part of the council with the current funds that we have available, as well as the reparation funds. I think our
15 seconds.
Our elders we owe it to our elders to help them stay in this community, and I think some of those funds need to be used in a more creative way.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that question. Okay, now we have resident Linda Delboski.
Well, I'm not a resident. I am a community leader. I'm a Latino community leader. My name is Linda Delboski, and I am the publisher of Evanston Woman Magazine and president of the Latinx Business Alliance here in the Evanston, serving Chicago and the North Shore. We're currently in the process of visiting our grants to open an incubator, and the West End was one of the places that we are looking to open. If you were to be a candidate, or as a candidate, elected alderman, what would you provide input in being on our board of directors, as well as giving us direction as a Latinx Business Alliance to help our small businesses. So I guess my question would be, what is one thing that our small businesses are lacking, or what would you like the incubator to provide our small businesses? And Bobby, I've worked with you closely since 2016 on campaigns and different things. So we will start there. Thank you.
What I'm noticing is, it's really technical assistance. Obviously it's always access to capital, access to non-predatory lending options, but also it's technical assistance, point of sale, help with point of sale, help with promotion and marketing. There's a business, Lighthouse Grill, and the owner there, she's experimenting with direct mail and, putting, special, putting different, offering things on the direct mail that aren't offered in the store to really be able to measure the outcome of her direct mail. It's something we do a lot in political consulting. We do a lot of direct mail, a lot of text. So I think we can support our businesses in trying to help them better understand how they can market and promote their businesses. And a big one is also awareness. I'm a business owner, and during COVID, I'm in the same predicament as a lot of the other businesses. I applied to receive a small business grant from the city. It was a $2,500 grant, up to $2,500 that I got from the city. And I think it's important that we go out to the businesses when something like that is available and make sure that they know that they can apply. And so just getting that information out early in the cycle so that they can have enough time to get their paperwork in and get the funding they need. But those are some areas. There's a few other areas, but those are some areas that I think y'all should work in, and I'll certainly support you in that work.
Well, I will say that as I go out to the small business owners in the 5th Ward, that they feel that they don't receive the adequate resources and support from the other business districts, which has caused problems for them not being aware of the additional funding that was available. As Bobby mentioned, that he was able to receive grants, but unfortunately I spoke with a business owner who received the information 2 days later, and she didn't qualify to get the additional grant money that the city was resourcing out to the small business owners. And it's very unfortunate that we live in a ward that the business owners in this ward feel that they aren't being fully supported as in other business districts. So we know that the assistance is even sometimes more than financial, that we want to look at technical support as well as staffing. I think that with our youth and young adult program, we have the summer youth jobs program. I think that we should try to do some type of partnership within the wards and the small businesses to see if some of those job opportunities could be presented to the businesses. And as far as districting and looking into being more supportive and more resourceful to the existing businesses that we have, it would be detrimental to the ward to help facilitate that. It's definitely an opportunity.
Okay.
Do I get to answer that question?
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Yes. So I love the idea of an incubator. Last year when I was in Uganda, I visited this incubator and I talked to Malika about it, and it just blew my mind. And I said, I would love to bring an incubator like this to Evanston, and we deserve one. One of the things that we know as a business owner is that the cost of rental for an actual business place is one of the largest expenses that a business owner has. So being able to share the space, specifically what I would love to see is an incubator space for all our amazingly talented chefs that we have, specifically in this ward, who are cooking out of their homes, delicious meals, and just don't have the money to afford a kitchen to cook in. So one of the ideas that I have is a shared kitchen space where if you have the certification for food handling, you could use that space, a couple of days out of the week and sell your products out of that space. Not only does that help build your name recognition as a chef, but it also provides you a space that you can, with the necessary licenses, so you don't have the fear of being sued or anything like that. One of the highlights of that idea is that most of our chefs are women, and they're doing so much for our community. And we also know that business owners that are women, once they have up and running businesses, are more likely to bring that money back into the community, as well as also hire other women. So I think that it's a great idea. I know that there are other incubators in Evanston. I know that there's
15 seconds.
that just popped up. But again, it's providing business owners that support, shared spaces to share costs, and also the experience of actually running a business and having a mentor by your side. So I hope that we get that specifically here in our ward.
Time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Lynnea Latimer. Ms. Latimer.
Hi, my name is Lynnea Latimer. Born and raised in Evanston. I've been living in the 5th Ward for 4 decades, a little bit more than 4 decades. And I just want to say ditto to Mr. Sutton. Like I said, I've lived here my entire life, and I've seen my community go from Black to white to, all these rental properties. I've seen my friends and my family disappear because they can no longer afford their homes. And I am a product of Family Focus. I went through the program, and I think it's a type of program that gave girls like me the encouragement they needed to believe to be whoever they want. And I see some of my fellow alums on the call as well. And I just want to say ditto to Mr. Sutton. I think that I would love to see the Family Focus be restored to the glory that it once was. But that's not my question. My question is to all of the candidates. In the past, I remember when Alderman Holmes was our alderman, and when she first started, she had a newsletter that went out to all of the community members, and it gave us an update of what was going on in the community, in the area, and things that we should be concerned about. I know that was some time back, and the way to communicate is advanced now. However, we still have elderly community members, for example, my mother, who's not on social media, but still want to know how what the 5th Ward is doing. And so my question to the candidates is, how do you plan to involve the community in your decision-making process? And if you can, walk me through that decision-making process. And also, how do you plan on communicating with residents that are not able to connect with you through the internet? Thank you.
Okay, Bobby Burns, you want to take that first?
Yeah, so, as a political consultant and community engagement professional, I'm always thinking about how to do outreach. That one half of the job of political consultant is, kind of messaging and PR, but the big part of it is outreach, how to do community outreach effectively. And I think a lesson that all of our institutions in Evanston need to learn is that you really need to use every single way possible to communicate with people. So text, email, door-to-door, phone banking, like we should try everything we can to reach people where they're at. And so that's the first thing, is just use all the different opportunities available to reach people. I think from what I'm hearing is that the meetings were switched. Also, the ward meetings were switched from Thursday to Wednesday. And I'm hearing some concerns from the community that Wednesday is Bible study day. And so, we'll probably, if elected out, we'll probably switch that back to Thursday. So it seems like it's a better day for people, especially our elders and our seniors. Also think we might need to do a second meeting. One of the things that I think is a strength of mine is that I've really arranged my life the last 10 years to make myself fully available to demanding volunteer opportunities such as this. I'm a consultant that has a very flexible work schedule. So I'm not in a cubicle or an office 9 to 5. I'm available during the day And because of that, I think we can do some gap meetings, whether that's adding a second meeting or doing some gap meetings when there's a really important issue that needs to be discussed. And then overall, because I know my time is coming short, is that I think it's really important before anything happens, whether it's adding a residential parking zone or
15 seconds.
That we need to make sure the community is brought in as early as possible so that they can, let us know what all their concerns are, and we can address them on the front end. And, that's just my style. Let them know as early as possible, bring them as close to the process as possible, and allow them to feel ownership over the decision. This is their community. The community should reflect their imagination and their wants and desires. And
Time, Mr. Burns.
Okay, Carolyn?
Yes. Well, I will honestly say that I worry about my seniors often in the ward meeting. I have moderated and assist with the Fifth Ward meetings for almost a decade. As a former co-chair of West Evanston strategic team for so many years, we were putting that newsletter out and subject matter and different topics based on the information that we receive from the residents in the ward meetings every month for years. That kind of came to the close when we were also getting that funding to sponsor the newsletter through private donors. So I would love to see the city actually pick that up and be more responsible to providing equity across the generations that we have still in the Fifth Ward. I believe that it's important to communicate with all types of representation in the ward as they may be. We know that the seniors, not all of them use a computer, and not all of them even watch some of the cable channels as well. So what I propose in my ward, in the ward meetings, if elected, that we go back to moving the ward meetings to the different site locations throughout the Fifth Ward. I would say that we've done it at Fleetwood for so many years, and then it moved to the city facility. I think that we should at least have a rotation where we are moving the meeting around, because we had a lot more residents from the Jacob Blake building that would literally walk down to the street for the meetings. So I
15
think
seconds.
it's imperative to do that as well. And I propose that we have 2 additional meetings added to the month, a meeting for the police and a meeting for the small businesses every month. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Rebecca?
Yes, so it sounds like people really like those newsletters. If that's what people want, then we should find a way to get those newsletters back into the hands of our residents. One exciting thing that I want to share with my work through the nonprofit leadership COVID group is that we've been working with Audrey Thompson at the City of Evanston to bring to Evanston for all residents 55 and older a program that's called Juniper. Juniper is a device that you can attach to any television. It doesn't have to be a smart TV or anything, and it turns a TV into a smart TV. So for all of our seniors that don't have social media, that aren't paying attention to meetings, it's a way that we can bridge the generational technology gap. And of course, training will be provided, but it allows their computer to be turned into a social media platform and get updates from the city, as well as get access to classes, whether that's a yoga class, a knitting class, Bible study class. That's one of the tools that the city currently is working to bring to residents 55 and over. But I think as an alderman, what I would do is listen to residents. If the newsletters is what they want, then we should find a way to bring those back. One really neat thing that I found out about this week at another meeting was that Evanston Fifth Ward residents used to get gift baskets when they moved into the ward. One of the things that has been talked about over and over is just the lack of community that has lapsed over the years. And, a lot of neighbors don't talk to each other. So how do we foster more conversations, not only intergenerational, conversations, but also
15 seconds.
intercultural conversations. One of the things that I love to do is bring people together. And I would find creative ways to ensure that everyone feels welcome at events, as well as ensure that people understand the information that that is imperative that they know as residents.
Okay. Thank you for that question. Bonnie James? Bonnie, you're muted.
There, sorry. I'm Bonnie James. I've lived on the 1700 block of McDaniel for 28 years. I read yesterday in the Evanston Roundtable that the city is proposing a new skating park for skateboarders. And it seems like they really want to get people away from the Fountain Square area. And one of the parks that they suggested is Beck Park, also Twiggs Park. Loveless Park, Twiggs Park, Beck Park, Mason Park, and James Park. And they said, Mr. Hemingway said that a permanent skate park could cost from $350,000 to $750,000. And we have a big blank canvas over here at Beck Park because of the pumping station, which happened without representation to the people or notification to the people on the block. And now it seems like any money for upgrades, any money that was originally planned to be spent to even put a path through that has been taken away. But it seems like this could be a real possibility if they want to keep it out of the downtown. And how do we make sure that the residents are heard this time? That's all. That's for everybody.
Who wants to take that first?
I can take it. I'm a strong believer in bringing back youth activities to the ward. I believe that not only should we advocate to get the skate park in the Fifth Ward, I believe that we should also look at reducing some of the fees and also going so much far as to say that the beach tokens for the youth 18 years and under should be free. We have a disconnect with the activities that we provide for our youth. And I see that every summer we have a homicide because the lack of opportunities that are presented to our youth. I think that we need to collectively start looking at strategically planning initiatives that would get our youth and young adult more engaged in the community so they have more opportunities. And if it's a skate park that we can have within the ward, I definitely would support it. And I definitely would look into the Parks and Recreations Department as to other services that they can provide for the Fifth Ward youth. Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you, Carolyn. Bobby Byrne?
Go ahead.
I think it's a great idea. My 34-year-old self has been trying to learn how to skateboard with my 8-year-old son and having fun doing it. And we go out to a park in, I think it's Mount Prospect. It's far, and there's some other skate parks around the area, but nothing close enough. So I think it makes a lot of sense to bring a skate park to Evanston. I would like to, it from yesterday's meeting, you can tell it's a very tight knit and close community. So if we could get them to self-report their addresses or at least main intersections by them, we should figure out where they are, where they live. And I think we should make sure that the skate park is close enough where they'll actually use it, especially if we're trying to, redirect them away from the Fountain Square and, get them to use the skate park. So we need to look at that. In addition to that, obviously, we need to make sure we're making it equitable and we're also giving folks in the Fifth Ward and other wards access to it as well. But I think really it's important that they use it. And so if we locate it too far away from where many of them are coming from, I think that kind of defeats the purpose of trying to redirect them away from Fountain Square. But I think it's a wonderful idea. As Carolyn said, we need as many opportunities for especially teenage kids. When I did some research with two Northwestern students some years ago, teenage children over the weekends, like finding something for them to do. That's the service gap that still exists today in Evanston. And I think that's skateboarding is a wonderful community and culture. And if that adds some value and some community for our young people in Evanston, I think that's a wonderful idea.
Rebecca?
Thank you. So I think that the idea is really cool, but I would love to hear from residents. And by that, I also mean I want to include our youth. Do our youth want a skate park, and do they want it at that location? I would like to go roller skating. I don't know about skateboarding. I've tried it. It wasn't for me, but you know, again, bringing back some of those old traditions. I grew up roller skating all over this town, and you know, we used to have Rainbow nearby, and that was, again, you know, something that we could do. We don't have very many activities for our youth to do. So if they're getting into trouble, if they're going into places that we don't necessarily want them to be, then we have to provide activities for them to do. You know, right now our youth spend a whole lot of time downtown Evanston because of the movie theater, right? And so I think I don't want it to be that we don't want to see our youth down there. I think that our youth deserve a voice, and that residents need to understand that balance. But I would be fully in support of an activity for our youth, whether it's a roller rink, or I think that I think we need to hear from our youth versus us telling them what it is that they should be doing.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Holmes?
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know where to begin. I have so many things I want to react to and so many questions I want to ask. I want to, Bonnie James, who spoke before, I just want to let residents know that the banners that hung in the Fifth Ward for many, many years were created by Bonnie James. So she was very much involved in helping with the Evanston West, where we had started the strategic team for that. So Bonnie was a really big part of that. Also in terms of our block clubs. I want to ask my question about block clubs because I'd like to know your positions on block clubs, because I have a very biased feelings about block clubs. And I'd just like to know where each one of you stand with block clubs in your plans as alderman for the ward.
Rebecca Mendoza?
Anybody, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, I would love to be part of a block club if there was a block club on my block. I think, again, you know, because of the changes to our ward, some of those block clubs aren't available to all residents. And so how would we work to start block clubs? I live in a unique area where there aren't actually very many residents. I think there's only three residential areas, and so I think that it's a great way for community members to stay connected, to get to know each other. Until we get a school in this ward, it's a great way for young people, students within our district, to get to know each other. So I think that that's a great. And I don't actually know of very many other wards that have block clubs. So I think that's something that's very unique to the Fifth Ward. And it would be interesting to see how we could preserve that.
Thank you. Carolyn?
So I will say that the years of doing the meetings, the block clubs that we had throughout the Fifth Ward were very instrumental in resourcing information to their respective blocks. I have noticed that different blocks and residents kind of house their own culture within the ward. So I have been the single-handed block club leader for my block, which they don't want to have meetings. I literally am just knocking on doors and telling them to move their cars if they're parked on the wrong side of the street. I'm printing handouts and just telling them what meetings to go through. That was the years of history that I have with my block. However, I've known and been to many of blocks that have their annual block parties where we had to call the fire department out to bring the truck and go by and say hi and greet. And they have music, they're organized. So it varies in the culture. Obviously, it is crucial to have that because now we're looking at issues of the COVID response. So if there's needs in a particular block of the neighborhood, we want to be able to know that we can get resources among the ward. I see the growing influx of food pantries and book pantries. So with that, if you have a block and you have someone on the block that the block club leader has communicated that they're, going through a hardship, I think
15 seconds.
It's a plus to know that those clubs exist, and then we could kind of help ourselves intermittently within the ward. And if there's any additional resources, we can easily disseminate that because we have a collective group of block clubs that already exist. Thank you.
Thank you. Bobby Burns?
Yeah, I think absolutely we need to support the existing block clubs. We need to reorganize the ones that are no longer organized. And similar to how we're thinking about providing, training and support for our businesses, I think we need to provide training and organizing support, and also the technological tools to make organizing easier to our block club chairs. So I think both of those groups could use support, and I'm happy to do that. I think it's also just a good opportunity to get everybody to huddle in to hear what all the different concerns are of the ward. Since I've been campaigning, the needs are various. We live in a fifth ward, but that's an arbitrary political boundary. Depending on where you live can determine, your experience. And so, whether or not it's residential zoning issues, you're talking to people that may need repairs for the electrical and plumbing repairs. You're talking to people that need speed bumps and need to know what the process is to getting added a speed bump. They may have, want to know more about the 50-50 sidewalk program. So you have people that need information about that. I've met people while I'm campaigning that just need help understanding how to entrust property to a family member, which is important. That fluid and easy transition of property ownership is important. So the needs are various, and having that one point or a few points where people can come in, huddle up, and we can document what all the needs are, I think is really important, so that on council and in my conversations with the city manager, I can really know what the priorities are and what the direct needs are of the ward. So I think it's great. I think we need to fully support block clubs, and I plan to do so.
Okay, thank you all so much. We're coming to a close here. I'm gonna get one last question in. I've gone to, I can't tell you how many council meetings, and I've watched Alderman Robin Ruth Simmons many times go to bat. Like, she calls them out when decisions are going in a wrong direction, when there's been a commitment to do something, and then all of a sudden they renege on those decisions. And she's been a fighter up there, and you all are coming out very wonderful. Like, the city is going to be so cooperative in everything. Well, I mean, except for Carolyn, she's kind of being real about it. What are you all's, what is your plan? Because clearly it's not that easy, because all the things that you're talking about, the library and the community schooling and the collaborations, all that would have taken place already. You know what I'm saying? So what are you going to do different that the former aldermen, weren't able to do? And I know they've gone to bat for the Fifth Ward. And we all know that the Fifth Ward, you have to have a fighter up there, because they don't want to give us what we're supposed to have. You have to fight for it. So I would like to know what is your plan when you're fighting that system up there, because it doesn't seem to go so wonderful and kumbaya.
Well, Malika, I would like to respond and say that over the 20 years of advocating in this ward. It's not easy. No alderperson can do it single-handedly. I'm sure Alderman Holmes will tell you that if you don't have the support within the community to develop and nurture the ideas that come from the community, it won't go past go. And you have to understand too, you're just one of 9 people that is representing your collective idea for your ward. So you have now see a need in your community, and you have to navigate through the system in order to get the support of the majority to get that initiative passed. But you have to motivate the 5th Ward residents to put action into the words or the concerns that they have. I have proven to be that person, and I have advocated for so many issues. I have been a stellar go-to person for people that live in the ward, have concerns, and have issues. So we're collectively moving on the needs of the people. And if you have that motion, if you have that action, that movement, it can facilitate. Now, does it facilitate the next day? Who's to say? But at least you have them talking, and at least you have them at public comments. And that's where you start with the initiatives that are needed for not just the ward, for the city as well.
Okay.
But thank you. That is a good point. And you do have to be a strong person, but you have to be able to get this ward together, because divided, you're not going to be able to move those initiatives forward.
Okay. Rebecca Mendoza.
Thank you, Malika, for that question. So being a leader doesn't mean that you have all the answers, but in this position, it does mean that you have to solicit ideas from the community. And I see this role as one of being an advocate and a liaison for the community. And that's something that that I've done, you know, my 15 years in the different professions that I've held. I don't have a problem voting no, and I've done it at the school board, you know, even though it wasn't a popular vote. I have to do what's right. Otherwise, I don't sleep. And, you know, in the work that I've done over the years, I'm constantly thinking of others. I'm constantly thinking of ways to improve, and again, to include the community beyond the 5th Ward, because again, the work that's going to be done by the next city council is going to impact our whole entire city. Yes, I will be a representative specifically for the needs of the 5th Ward, but the work that's going to be done by the next council has to be a collaborative effort to ensure that our city is better off at the end of as we begin to rebuild from this pandemic. It hasn't happened in 100 years, so a lot of the decisions that are going to be made are going to be new and need to include. We've seen so many decisions, right, made by city council that didn't include community feedback. And again, I'm not afraid to stand alone. I've been an advocate for many people in this community, and I hope to be able to do that in this position as Alderwoman for the 5th Ward.
Okay. Thank you, Rebecca. And Bobby Burns.
You know, first, I just want to highlight that I think, progress takes time, and but I do want to call attention to, some of what I think Alderman Holmes has done, but also Simmons. I mean, the inclusionary housing ordinance is better than it was the first time I took a look at it. They've added a lot of important additions to it, and I think they continue to strengthen it, and we need to do that. Reparations, we passed the first taxpayer-funded reparations program in the country. That's pretty cool. The storefront modernization program to make sure that our Church and Dodge business corridor was beautified. That is something that's that's inviting. It's going to welcome people to that business corridor. I think about the youth and young adult development program, right? That hasn't been here a decade, or two. That even is a recent addition to our community. And Kevin Brown and the other members of that committee have done a lot. That group have done a lot. But another thing is just understanding how kind of government works. And I think I have a good sense of that being a political consultant. For instance, we have environmental justice issues with the waste transfer station and another site that produces oil or accessory and coating for oil pipelines in the area. And right now, we need additional testing. It's probably something sitting on the desk of somebody at an environmental protection agency in the federal government. We need to be working with our congresswoman to make sure that we can get some more testing out here. And we need an advocate for that, somebody that understands that. We saw the recent Northwestern report that showed that there's a disparity in lead testing, that the Fifth Ward's water isn't being tested as
15
other
seconds.
wards are. And so, with that, I think we need to talk about lead pipe abatement program. And then we need to think about how to fund it, which I think we can do some creative ways to fund it through, our water bill, making sure that maybe it's a portion of the water bill or somebody's water bill that goes to pay it, but there's no upfront cost. So I think we need somebody in there that understands government, understands how to get things done and to fund things. And I think I can do that.
Okay. Thank you all so much. I think we've learned some things about each one of you, and I know each one of you personally, so I know the energy and the fire that each of you bring to the table. During this time period that we're in, especially after January 6th, we know how the opposers can come, and it may not be physical in that way, but they work through that government system, and there's always a system up there that has that same mentality. They're just in a suit and tie sitting at the dais or in a dress or whatever the case. So, we're excited about Biden and Kamala and hoping and praying, but they're fighters, and that's what we're in need of, even at the local level. We're in need of that. And I've heard a lot of people in the Fifth Ward just, crying out for things, that some things need to change. And, we need a leader that recognizes that and hears that and isn't putting flowers around it, that is going to be smooth and easy and be very real with us about what's actually taking place. And I think that's also a huge problem, even across Evanston, that there's a detachment, there's a distance there, there's a disconnect between council and the residents. So I think each of you, definitely brings something, but I know that is definitely needed right now, are fighters and people being very real, bold and raw about it, about what's needed and what needs to get done and get it done. So thank you all so much. I have a great deal of respect for all three of you on so many levels. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to our sponsors, STEM School Evanston. Thank you, Henry.
Thank you for me.
Thank you for your questions. Thank you, thank you. And thank you to Erica Walker of the Walker Thomas Group for sponsoring as well. And thank you so much to the residents that called in and brought in your questions, and some of you just, checked it out. I understand you got to sit back and check people out. Sometimes you just don't say nothing. You just got to sit back and watch them, watch everything that they do. So thank you so much for joining us. And you all, please stay tuned. We have the mayoral debate coming up February 2nd, and that's going to be sponsored by Kappa Alpha Psi. Be right here on Evanston Live TV. So please stay tuned. We have more individual candidate interviews coming up. So stay tuned, stay engaged. Other groups are giving forums and interviews. Please log on to those so you can learn as much as you possibly can about these candidates. Please do stay engaged, people, stay engaged, because it is very important that you elect the right leaders. And we all know when you elect the wrong one, how wrong it can go, even on a local level, we know. So please, stay informed, people, stay informed. And it's going to be a tough one between these three. Yeah, you've got experience, you've got vision. All of them have experience and vision. So keep following all three of them and stay in tune and stay in touch with them as well. Get in touch with them. And actually, can each of you give your contact information to everyone?
Sure.
Go ahead.
How do you want us to, because I can send it to you, or do you, I have,
You can just say it right now, and I'll be sure to put it in the description when I post the video.
okay, send it, so just send it to you via email, is that good?
You can send it to me via email, but also just tell them
Oh, okay.
right now.
Well, my website is murray45ward.com. I have a email address, murray45@gmail, and then well, I'm in the neighborhood, so most of the people know where I live. So either way, you can get in contact with me. It's cell phone or website. I'm available.
Okay, thank you. Bobby Burns.
Yeah, email is bobby@burns45.com. I really invite everybody to go to the website. We put a lot of time into it. So that's burns45.com, BURNSFOR, the numeral 5.com. There's a lot of information on there. My resume is on there. I got 2 pages worth of experiments with links to articles that talk about the community work that I've been doing for the past 10 years in the Fifth Ward and also in Evanston. Really good background information about my upbringing and my ideological foundation. So definitely everything is there, and certainly reach out to me. My number is 224-714-2184. Would love to talk.
And Rebecca Mendoza is the write-in candidate.
Yes, I am fighting to stay in this race. And so I am continuing as a write-in candidate. It's REBECA, MENDOZA. You can find more information on me at www.Rebecca, again with 1 C, REBECA, FOR, the number 5TH.com. My handles on Facebook and Instagram are Rebecca for Fifth as well. Again, REBECA, FOR, the number 5 and TH. And I look forward to hearing from you. And I think I'm that fighter that this community deserves. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you all. And thank you to our engineers, Janone Smith and Benicia Mayo Burton. Thank you so much. Couldn't have done any of this without you. Thank you. Thank you. And it looks like Bobby's putting his link in for everyone to get in touch with him. If your questions didn't get answered or you need elaboration, please contact them. You all, again, please contact them and get your questions answered. Okay, this has been Malika, Evanston Live TV. Stay tuned for more candidates, more on the Evanston election. And again, we're the voice of the people. Stay engaged. Stay engaged.
Thank you so much, Malika.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. See you guys.
Give me a minute to copy and paste from the chat.
Okay.